welcome to this video. In CCI, our mission is to impact 10,000 lives through coaching. CCI trains high caliber coaches and we walk the talk by bringing coaching to businesses and communities. My name is Lin Tan and I'm an ICF Master Certified Coach. I'm one of the many MCC trainers here at Collective Change Institute. So in this video, I'm here to teach you how to use the CCI model or the CCI coaching map so that you can coach anyone on anything, and it can even be used on teams and on yourself. Not everything that is faced can be changed, but nothing can be changed until it's faced. This is such a wise quote by James Baldwin, who is a writer and a civil rights activist. It perfectly wraps up this lesson and the reason why the CCI map has been proven effective despite being used by hundreds of coaches of different backgrounds and skill levels. In CCI, we recognize there is a bigger picture to coaching. Coaching sits within the context of change. How can we achieve the desired outcomes in our lives? By understanding the change needed to get there. As coaches, we are facilitators of change, or here we call it change catalysts. Our coachees and the employees whom we coach seek our support to get them to a better place. So a better place denotes change. There is a change process, and we define change as the movement from point A to point B. I'm at home now and I need to get to the office. That's point A going to point B. Another simple example, I earn $10,000 revenue in a month and I want to increase it to $15,000, which is my point B. Got it? Good. This is the basics of change. But is it really that simple? So why is it that ambitious people still struggle to achieve their goals? How is it that the most intelligent person on your team can't crack the high-performance code? What's causing your coachee to be stuck and circling for 20 minutes on their existing situation, even though he or she says they want out? See, change is complex. There are many variable factors involved, and we won't go into these variables in the video, but you are here to learn something even more powerful. Imagine if you knew a fail-proof approach to get them to move towards the goal. How much more confident will you feel in tackling coachee cases and employee challenges, even if you weren't in their shoes before? Cue the CCI model. This CCI model or CCI coaching map has been tested and proven time after time after time since we started coaching way back in 2004. This is a fundamental model that we teach every student who walks through our doors, students who move through ACC to PCC and eventually to MCC. This is the model that our MCC trainers have mastered and is at the back of our minds when we used to coach, which we used to coach clients, mentor coaches, and consult organizations. The CCI model stands for current, change, and ideal. These are the dynamics that make up any change that you can think of will have a current dynamic, a change dynamic, and an ideal dynamic. Another way to think of dynamic is energy. So what does this all mean, Lynn? Let me explain each of these first, and I will share with you why it works and how you can use it. So current is what is happening right now. It is present time. It is the reality happening right now. It exists. It is in, it's in the now. We can feel it, we can touch it, we can encounter it. We often hear this when a friend is complaining about a boss or a coachee is describing the struggle that they have with their weight. Current can be told through a narrative. For example, I'm really not good with public speaking. It can also be expressed via an emotion. I get so annoyed and impatient with my kids. And it can also be heard through actions like I overspent on shopping again. Ideal is a future dynamic. It is not happening right now. It is not being experienced right now. It is to come. It is a vision. It resides in the future and it lives in the mind. We often hear this described as a goal, an aspiration, a dream, a vision, a purpose, a calling, a desired outcome. There are many ways we recognize this dynamic in our lives. It is the end point or the next point that we are hoping to get to. Ideal can be told through a narrative. For example, I hope to be a well-respected leader who can influence and persuade the masses. It can also be expressed via emotions. For example, I would love to feel zen despite the 101 demands that I'm getting from my kids throughout the day. It can be heard through actions. I would like to be mindful of how I spend my money and be able to make wise investment decisions. Change is, you guessed it, change, the change dynamic, or the process to move from the current to the ideal. It could be happening as we speak, or it could be something that needs to happen. It does contain both the present and the future time dimension because it is a process that is unfolding as we speak. We often hear this described as steps, plans, efforts, support systems, strengths, knowledge, and action. The change dynamic can be told through a narrative. For example, I plan to subscribe to a public speaking course. It can be expressed via an emotion. For example, I remind myself that I love them, even though I feel so annoyed at times. And it can be heard through actions. I did stop myself from impulse buying yesterday, and I'm quite proud of it. Now, there is a fourth one, and that is under the change dynamic, but it is the counter change or the counter force. And here's where Newton's law comes in. For every force, there is a counter force of equal magnitude. This means that there will naturally be forces that act against the intentions and the efforts of change. It is not because you or your coachee or your employee sucks. It simply is a law of physics that happens. We often hear this described as barriers, difficulties, blocks, sabotage, demotivation, or a negative attitude. Counter efforts can be told through a narrative like, I have never been good at public speaking, even since I was in school. It can be expressed via an emotion. I feel so discouraged every time I tell myself I won't shout at my kids, and yet I do. And it can also be heard through an action. For example, my friends love to shop and they often ask me out for a girls' day out. How do we use this model? We use this model or this map to uncover blind spots. We are often aware of some of these happening to us, but unaware of what other undercurrents are at play. It is this unawareness that stops us from achieving our goals. Awareness leads to control. Therefore, we can't control what we're not aware of. Let's go back to physics for a bit. There is a law of nature called the law of symmetry. Forces always occur in pairs. You will see here how present is tied to future. You can't have a future without a present and vice versa. And the change efforts is tied to counter efforts. And all these four come in a package. This means every time you set your mind to embark on something, these four dynamics automatically come into play, regardless of whether you want it to or whether you are aware of them. So the mistake that we make is that we don't sit down and really flesh out all these four in our day-to-day decisions or sometimes in our life decisions. We kind of go by impulse, or we're quite fast to act because that's what society prioritizes, or simply also that the human brain can't think beyond itself, right? So this is where you have consultants and coaches and bosses and friends and mentors who come in to help push us past our existing thinking. Thank you for sitting through all of that. Now that we've got the base covered, how do we use this to empower us as coaches? As coaches, we are expert facilitators of change. We use this knowledge and this law to our advantage by using it to flesh out the coachee's journey and bring awareness to all four dynamics. Now, we don't need to know absolutely everything in current, ideal, or change. We are not all-knowing. We just need to know more than what we know now to be sufficiently empowered to move forward. I will walk you through an example after this. Here in CCI, we train coaches and coaching leaders to be fluid. So you will see that this model allows that to happen. Conversations are fluid. Humans are unique. So wouldn't it make sense to be trained in how to coach adaptively and not rely on a sequence of coaching steps that will not suit everyone? Learning how to coach using the CCI model will allow you to flow and adapt to the unique individual seated across you. My promise to you is that this is applicable to anyone on any case. And do you see why now? These laws apply to every single person. How it affects a person is unique to them. So how I would earn an extra $10,000 in a month would be very different from how you would earn an extra $10,000 in a month. And with this CCI framework, our coach will be equipped to co-design a very unique individualized plan together with each of us. And this customized solution will greatly increase my chance of success and your chance of success. Therefore, it is a model that you use to bring out the unique journey and therefore the unique solution for the individual sitter across you. Do we teach this model to our coachee or employee? No, you coach using the knowledge of this model. Now, if you stay to the end of the video, you will get a bonus that is going to be very useful in your application of this. So we flow with the conversation as we move along with the coachee's train of thought. If they come to you sharing an ideal, for example, I'm really keen to set up my own business, then you start unpacking from there, right? So you can ask questions like, sounds exciting. Could you tell me more? Or, ooh, what does this business look like? Okay, so you unpack from there. If they come to you and start sharing what's happening for them right now, for example, I'm frustrated with my job search, then you start unpacking for there. For example, what makes you so frustrated? They could also come to you describing their encounter with change. For example, I've been trying to work things out with my spouse, but it's been very challenging and draining. And then you start from there. For example, what have you been trying to work out? So why do we do this, right? Why do we want to flow with the conversation using this model? Instead of bring them from, let's talk about your current first, and then let's talk about your ideal first, and then we talk about your change, right? So let's say you plan to go to the supermarket to pick up groceries. You would likely either start with the thought of, what am I lacking that I need to buy? So that's a change, right? Or you might have a goal in mind, like I need to bake a strawberry cake. That's an ideal. Or you might be the kind who just turns up at the market and you start with an empty cart, and that's how you start your shopping journey. And that's starting from current. So we all work differently. We have a start point in our mind, the station from which our train of thought departs from. So again, we go with this natural flow and we follow and we pace where the client is. What is our end game here? What is the mission at hand with the CCI model? Did you guess that we have to uncover all 4 dynamics in the coaching conversation? Because if you did, you guessed right. This is our aim because we want to reveal and leverage the 4 components that create successful change. In this last part of the lesson, I will walk you through a case example of a real coachee I worked with. If you'd like to watch a demonstration of a coaching conversation using the CCI framework in the background as I coach, you can head to our YouTube channel and look for the coaching demonstration video using the CCI model. Again, a friendly reminder, you can also use this on yourself. You can draw this model out like a map and fill it in. Or you can download the workbook in the link in the show notes. I will walk you through this case sequence, very much like how the coachee worked through it. And the purpose of this is to give you a sense of how this flows and it unfolds beautifully. The coachee came in disempowered and left with usable discoveries from me simply coaching with this model in the background. And of course, basic coaching skills like listening and questioning. At the start of the coaching conversation, the coachee, let's call him Zach, started by sharing this. I'm leading a sales team. They are doing well, but I want to bring them to the next level. And so I use questions, I ask a little bit more, and he shares, and you'll see these points on the map in front of you. But he ends off with, there are some things I've tried, but it's not quite yielding the results I want. So if we step back and look at it, he started the conversation sharing what's happening in the current. And then where he left off began to hint at the change efforts. So what has he tried? Let's find out. I ask, what have you tried so far? And Zach shares the following. He says he's put in weekly sales meetings. He also does quarterly mixes with other departments in the organization and also brings in some external experts. He's also requested more mentoring from his boss. But at the end of sharing all that, he says, it's helped the team come together more, but it still doesn't seem to be enough to bring them to where we need to be. So we can begin to hear some counterforces coming up. And let's hold this down a little bit and move into it so that we can fully flesh out the counterforces that are happening. So if we pick up on what he last said, I'll ask something like, what's still not satisfactory for you? Zach begins to lay out how the team is falling short of his expectations and how some plans just aren't working fully. And then I ask him, how does this make you feel as their leader? He says, frustrated, sometimes tired, and at times deflated, although he doesn't show it to the team. So I pick up on that and I ask, so if you're demotivated, what are you saying about yourself as their leader? And he says that I'm not good enough to lead them. So I begin to get curious. And I ask, what are you intending to lead them to? I ask this because all this while, and it could be like 30 minutes into the session, he's actually not shared where he's trying to bring them. So I begin to wonder, what is he expecting? Now, his response is success, of course. And I ask, what exactly does that look like? Zach stays silent. He's thinking, he's mulling, and this is always a good sign. As we have expected, based on our model, we can see that this ideal is likely the blind spot. He might have a general sense that he's trying to work towards success, but he doesn't have a clear picture. So he finally responds with the following. Zach says, I think success to me is they achieve their targets consistently and they see it on the scoreboard. And I also hope that they achieve the incentive trip that our company is rolling out for the first time. Okay, that's what success is to you. What is success to them? And then Zach is quiet again. I don't know, he says. And I reply, as a people leader serving your people, wouldn't it help to know what they want? Now Zach realizes the missing piece. He's been trying really hard to close the gap that he sees so that he can achieve what he thinks his team wants. But he has no idea what the team considers measures of success. Does anybody on the team actually know what they're moving towards? Is there a vision? So at this point, I get Zach to step back and look at what he's covered so far. And I do this by asking a learning or a reflection question. For example, you've covered quite a lot. What are you realizing from this conversation? Or I could ask, what are you learning about yourself? Or what is apparent to you now? Or what's been missing for you that you can start to put into place? So these questions get Zach to think. He can now start formulating action steps based on his learning from the session. And he leaves the session with a plan. He decides to have one-to-ones over the next 2 weeks, cover everybody, and then organize a team session at the end of the month where they're going to do some visioning. And in order to prepare for that session, he's going to get support, external support from leaders who have gone through the same thing to give him some tips on how he can conduct this session. In this lesson, we've covered a lot, and I really appreciate your curiosity and your learner's attitude to sit through all that. Now you're ready to try this out on your own. So to wrap up, here are some key points. Number one, coaching sits in the context of change. And we need to know this because we need to know what we're doing. As coaches or as coaching leaders, we are facilitators of this change process. Number two, we decoded change. Change seems elusive, like it's something that can't be controlled, but it can to a degree. And by decoding it, we reveal factors of control that help us to increase the probability of success. And then we covered CCI, which stands for current, change, and ideal. And as part of the change, there is also the counter force dynamic that exists. Number four, how do we use this map? We use it to guide the conversation. It is an intentional conversation, not a haphazard one, and also not a fixed sequence. We unpack the CCI map as it comes through via the coachee's train of thought. And number five, the area, or sometimes areas, it could be one or two, are likely unexplored in the coachee's mind. This is where we ask questions to cause some discovery, and we turn those discoveries into actionable insights. So what now? I suggest using this to work on a goal you might have or a change that you want to invite in your life. Fill in the CCI map and notice what you are now aware of that you've not considered before. This is what you then turn into inspired action. But wait, this is not all. Coming up on the slide next is a bank of CCI coaching questions that you can take away with you to use on your coachees and even yourself. You stayed until the end and you earned this. Take a screenshot of this. You can also download this in the workbook via the link in the show notes. I hope you enjoyed this lesson as much as I enjoyed teaching it. Feel free to use this on yourself and on your coachees or employees. Do remember to credit CCI if you use this for somebody else's benefit. Remember, there is a CCI model demonstration video in our library, in YouTube and on our website as well. We also have other videos, podcasts, and articles that you can check out to learn more about coaching. You can also find us on LinkedIn, Instagram, and Facebook at Collective Change Institute. Thank you for joining us today and for being part of our mission to impact 10,000 lives. Catch you soon.